Everyone, this is my watch list for Tuesday, July 21st. All right, so what happened yesterday? Absolutely nailed this short I talked about in the pre-market, right? We went over this. I said SPY 748. If we stay above, potentially bullish. If we fail, it's bearish. And guess what happened? We popped. I just saw there was no buying off the open, so I waited for the failure. This candle came in, and then I shorted right here, right at the top, and we nailed this short. This did like 50% on Wednesday contracts. Beautiful, beautiful session. Now, we went, after we failed 748, we went back to the bottom of the range, 741, which is where we bounced on Friday. And now we're just gapping up again to the top of this range, which is actually kind of annoying, right? We're just back in this 747, 748 supply. And what's going to happen now? You know, do we break above? Do we reclaim? If so, again, we can switch our bias back to longs. Or do we fail the same supply, the 747, 748, and move back into the bottom of this range? I don't know if market's waiting on news. Maybe market's waiting on, there's a few earnings coming up this week. Tesla is a big one that's coming up this week. That may be what the market's waiting for. I believe we also have FOMC next week, okay? So let's see what happens, all right? But it's the same supply as yesterday, 747, 748. That's our supply, all right? If we get above yesterday's high, 749, this turns into a long. If we get below this range, 741, 740, it's a short. Okay? Very simple. Qs is a little bit, I don't love this chart as much. It's not as obvious to me. 706, we're already there. This was a big previous level. And this was also yesterday's highs, right? 706 is our supply in the Qs. I also have some micro levels at, I think, 708, 710 area. But this chart is not as good looking to me as SPY is. So I likely will not be touching the Qs until we break the range, okay? Either back above 710 or below the 686. We can look for shorts on the Qs, okay? Let's see what happens with that. Bearish bias as long as we're below 706 today. 710 really for me. All right. Let's look at a few individuals. Apple is at demand, okay? This 323.50. This was this high from last Monday, and we bounced off of it yesterday. So Apple is actually on my watch today. Question is, do we hold this demand or do we fail it? If we fail it, this turns into a short back into 317 area. I have a level. This was a previous all-time high from June, okay? If we fail below 323.50, it turns into a short. If we do one of these little, break, reclaim, we can look for longs, right? We'll look for longs at this demand, 323.50 on Apple, okay? AMD held my 500 level yesterday. This was actually a trade that I mentioned on the pre-market yesterday as well. This 505, 500 area. As long as we hold that, it's a long, okay? And AMD kind of ripped. 530 is my next level of supply. Above 530 can go to 560. So let's see if it can take out, let's see, the exact high from yesterday. Oh, this was a pre-market high, okay. 530 though, if we can reclaim that, I think this pushes back into 560. Amazon, I think Brett caught a nice trade on this yesterday above 250, 251 into 253, okay? This chart looks choppy to me. A lot of these charts are looking choppy, I think because we have that FOMC next week, and we also have a couple of earnings coming out this week and next week, okay? Meta, 625, as long as that holds, it's bullish. Netflix, I'm still watching for this reject. If we get to 71, this was the previous demand. Demand turns into supply. If we get to 71, I like that reject. Or if this gets below 65, which would be brutal for long-term shareholders. But if it does get below 65, then we can look for shorts on Netflix there as well. PLTR just held demand, right? But it's back into supply. 136, 137. This whole area is supply here. If it can take out this high, I would say, from Tuesday, July 7th, then this can turn into a squeeze, can turn into a long, all right? But until then, it's just sitting at supply, and it held demand, right? Below 129 is a short. NVIDIA, I think Rav might take this today. He was laser focused on it yesterday. So if 206 is my level, if this reclaims, then we can push into 208. If 208 breaks, we go to 210. Versus the downside, right? If we lose 200, then we'll go to 198. If we lose 198, this sells all the way back down into the low 190s, okay? Tesla has earnings this week on Wednesday, tomorrow, so we can't touch this, but it's sitting at demand, 370, okay? We'll see what happens after earnings. If we get below 370, this turns into a short. We'll see what happens, all right? So lots going on. We're kind of in a tight little area here. We'll see what happens. Lots of data coming up, lots of earnings coming up as well. So we'll see you guys on live.